6 spine-chilling motel horrors. Discover the terrifying secrets that haunt the cursed rooms. Ava's hands trembled as she turned the key in the ignition, her heart sinking with each failed attempt to start the car. The engine sputtered like a dying animal, leaving her stranded on a desolate stretch of highway in Kansas. Dusk settled in, cloaking the world in oppressive darkness. She looked at Ethan, his eyes wide with curiosity, as if to shield him from their reality. The situation was dire, and they had no choice but to pull into the rundown motel at the end of the block. The flickering neon sign buzzed like a swarm of angry bees, and the peeling paint whispered of a place long forgotten. Despite her overwhelmed instincts, exhaustion pulled at her, compelling her to accept the cheap rate. As they stepped into their room, the silence enveloped them like a thick fog. The air was damp, smelling faintly of mildew. The decor was bland. A flickering light bulb buzzed overhead, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Cryptic graffiti marred the yellow paint. Beware, lost, and don't trust him. Each word clawed at the corners of her mind as the atmosphere thickened with danger. Ethan clutched her hand. Maybe it was just exhaustion playing tricks. She double-checked the door's latch, attempting to push away the unsettling quietness, but her heart raced. The next morning, the old man who owned the motel offered a toothy smile that sent chills racing down her spine. His eyes were too wide, vivid against the gray of his pallid skin. He stood too close, leaning in to share stories of guests who never checked out. She laughed it off, brushing his tales aside as superstitious nonsense. But deep down, dread coiled uncomfortably in her stomach as the days dragged on, each one weaving new threads of unease. Objects shifted imperceptibly when she turned away, and lights flickered in sync with her spiraling anxiety. By the third night, panic exploded in her veins. Ethan had wandered from their room. A simple game of hide-and-seek had devolved into a nightmare. "Ethan!" she screamed, her words bouncing futilely off the motel's thin walls. The corridors unraveled into a labyrinth of confusion and despair. Shadows danced just out of sight. The whispers grew frantic, pressing against her ears as if alive. Every room held secrets, every locked door a threshold into darkness. Desperation propelled her toward the police station down the road, a place that was supposed to signify safety. But the officers exchanged glances with smiles that felt like daggers, dismissing her fears with nonchalant shrugs. "Kids run away sometimes," one said, an insufferable grin plastered on his face. A tightening grip around her heart told her this wasn't right. The calmness felt menacing. Then came the fourth night. As she sat at the edge of the bed, her heart pounded. Something cold slithered down her spine, rippling through her skin. A sudden icy grip wrapped around her ankle, pulling her back. The chaos rushed forward in a tidal wave of whispers and screams, merging into an auditory nightmare. She gasped for breath, disbelief coursing through her. What was this place? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With frantic determination bubbling in her chest, Ava realized she had to fight, to claw her way out of this twisted refuge. Who or what was behind all this? As she stood, heart pounding wildly, her reflection in the cracked mirror flashed back at her. It wasn't her own gaze that stared back, but the hollow eyes of another lost soul. Maybe the motel itself had reached out, hungry for another victim. A chilling thought gripped her. Who could she trust? Who could save her son? With dawning horror, Ava stepped toward the door, knowing that danger lurked in every shadow. Ava swung the door open, the hinges creaking like the throat of an ancient beast. Every instinct screamed for her to turn back. Shadows writhed at the edges of her vision, beckoning her into the tightening darkness. The corridor stretched endlessly ahead, illuminated only by flickering lights that buzzed with a sound like a swarm of angry wasps. She could feel the air thickening, pressing against her lungs as if the very motel was alive, suffocating her with its secrets. "Ethan." Her voice cracked, fear cut jagged through the silence. but nothing answered except for her echo, bouncing off the discolored plaster. She stepped forward, her heart pounding, each beat a frantic reminder of her son's absence. What if he wandered too far? What if he found one of those doors marked with the cryptic graffiti? She pinched her eyes shut, willing herself not to imagine what might be lurking behind them. Just then, she heard a faint giggle, light but eerie, the kind that chilled the bravest of souls. It sounded innocent to the untrained ear, but through Ava's terrified lens, it morphed into a siren-esque call, drawing her deeper into the maw of the motel. Tears burned her eyes as she sprinted down the hall. Every door loomed larger, casting threatening shadows that seemed to stretch and lunge toward her. Ava pushed past a door labeled Room 6, a name she had scrawled onto a notepad on the desk, having thought it might be her way to escape if needed. Room 6. Something inside her whispered the name, twisting around her thoughts like smoke. She should have stayed back, but she was desperate. Ethan. Panic electrified her voice, choking her as she turned the doorknob to the first room on her right. It creaked open, revealing an unkempt and dimly lit space. Dust motes danced in the narrow beams of light, swirling wildly, as if reliving a dance of souls lost long ago. The mattress lay askew, a single sheet clinging to the corners like a frightened child hiding from a nightmarish figure. She stepped in, her breath shallow and rapid. The smell of decay clawed at her throat, mingling with the scent of something sweet yet rotten, like fruit left to rot in the sun. She glanced around, searching for any sign of Ethan, but the room was a tomb, silent and oppressive. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her. She jumped, her heart racing as the locks clicked into place. The walls seemed to shift, inching closer as a primal terror gripped her. No. She pounded on the door, but the world outside felt like another galaxy entirely. Mom. The voice, small and frightened, came from somewhere past the walls. Terrified relief flooded Ava. Ethan. Help. His voice trembled, echoing through the motel's twisted architecture. Ava's heart split in two. Determination coursed through her. She dashed to the window, peering through the grimy glass, the outside world twisted and blurry. Desperation clawed at her throat. Hold on. She turned back, her fists pounding on the door, pleading for it to relent, yet the entrapment intensified. The jarring sound of footsteps reverberated through the hall, heavy and deliberate. Someone was approaching, someone who shouldn't be here. Mom. Ethan's voice again, louder now, as if he was closer. She could hear the tremor in it, and it ignited a furious flame inside her. Whatever had gripped this motel wouldn't take her son. Without thinking, she lunged against the door, feeling the wood tremble. The footsteps stopped. Help! She screamed, voice raw and shaking. As she pressed her body against the door, something cold brushed past her cheek like a whisper. Time to join them. The voice hissed, slithering through the cracks. Ava recoiled. It felt like ice spreading through her veins. Let us play. The door shimmered, a hazy glow threatening to pull her in. Ava clenched her jaw. She wouldn't go down without a fight. But then, a sound behind her, soft, innocent, but utterly hollow. She turned, her heart sinking. There was Ethan. Only he wasn't alone. What had followed him from the shadows? The door creaked again, and she realized the true horror was about to reveal itself. In the motel where every secret hurts, what nightmare awaited her? Ava barely breathed, her gaze locked onto the figure standing beside Ethan. A child, but how could it be? The creature wore a smile so wide, it felt like a grin carved from shadows. Its eyes gleamed with a sickly luminescence, and an unsettling giggle slipped from its lips, a sound that twisted in her gut, sharp as broken glass. Come play with us, it chimed, head tilting as it watched her with a predatory curiosity. Behind it, Ethan looked bewildered, tears streaking his cheeks, disbelief etched across his little face. Mom, help! His plea was a lifeline in a sea of darkness. Ava's heart raced, caught between the horrific sight before her and the desperation of her son. Ethan, stay back. She felt the trembling of her own voice, the weight of fear clamping around her throat. The thing stepped closer to Ethan, its hand reaching out, fingers elongated as if stretching to grasp something unseen. Ava lunged forward, her arms wide, trying to shield Ethan from the creature with every ounce of strength she had. Don't touch him. But just as she moved, the doorway flickered with an unnerving shimmer. The heavy door behind her seemed to breathe in and out, pulsing under the unnatural energy that surrounded them. The walls closed in tighter, darkness merging with the very air they breathed. Time's running out. The creature hissed softly, its voice draping over the room like a damp shroud. It turned back to Ethan, a warped affection twisting its features. He can stay, if you join us. Ethan took a step back, fear penetrating the innocence of his young mind. Mom, please. His voice wavered, a trembling thread in the cacophony of dread. Ava reached for him, desperation flooding her veins. Ethan, come here. Now. She felt the floor shift beneath her, threatening to swallow her whole. The creature laughed, a high-pitched sound that echoed off the walls. He can be happy here. He can be one of us. Panic surged through Ava's chest, the implication of its words crashing into her like a tidal wave. You're not him, she shouted into the cavernous space, her voice cracking under the weight of her fear. Get away from my son. With renewed determination, she pushed through the suffocating atmosphere, feeling the air shift around her as she raced to Ethan. The creature was blocking the way, but Ava wouldn't let it take him. Mom. Ethan cried again, louder, more desperate. Just as Ava reached him, the windows rattled violently, their glass vibrating ominously. The whispers of the walls grew louder, spinning tales of despair and pride. Without thinking, she grabbed Ethan's hand, her grip fierce. Run. Ava tugged him towards the door, but the entity lunged forward, a whirl of darkness, its laughter erupting into a piercing shriek that reverberated through the room. She barely dodged its grasping fingers, the air crackling with suspense, and felt the heat of it whip past her. They stumbled out of the room, dragging their fears with them, only to find the corridor had changed. Doors shifted into walls, transforming the landscape into a labyrinth of horror. No. Ava felt her sanity unravel as the corridor contorted, twisting and folding around them like a monster coiling in on itself. Ethan, we're going to be okay. But deep down, she felt the truth wrap around her heart like a vice. Ethan's frightened face twisted in confusion. Where do we go, Mom? The floor cracked beneath them. The motel trembled as shadows began to rise, wailing and beckoning like desperate ghosts. Just follow me, Ava shouted, pulling him along. Their footsteps echoed against the walls, but every step felt like a countdown, each beat threatening to lock them in the clutches of despair. They raced down the hall, Ava's heart pounding like a war drum. But as she glanced over her shoulder, she realized the creature had vanished, dissolved into the shadows, but that didn't mean they were free. Mom, Ethan's voice was shaky, and for the first time, the terror in his eyes broke her heart. From the corner of her eye, a door slowly creaked open, a beckoning glow spilling out into the dark. Ava hesitated, torn between flight and the unknown. Should they risk it? What lay beyond that door? As the shadows started to inch closer, Ava clenched her jaw, determination igniting within. Come on, Ethan. With urgency, she took his hand once more, bolting towards the unknown, and inside, the horrifying truth waited to unravel. The instant they stepped through the door, the air thickened, a palpable fog swirling around them. It was a different world, one drenched in flickering shadows and a ghostly light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Ava squinted, searching for clarity amidst the gloom. The faint sound of whispers poured into her ears, soft yet insistent, wrapping around her like cold tendrils. Mom. Ethan's voice wavered beside her, pulling her back from the edge of her spiraling thoughts. She squeezed his hand tighter, as if their connection could fend off the creeping dread. In front of them, the space opened into an eerily familiar room. It looked like the very room they had escaped, but there were subtle differences. The walls dripped with dark stains, and the air felt heavy, like a storm about to break. A chilling breeze brushed across Ava's cheeks, sending a shiver down her spine. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder. Join us, the voices curled around her, weaving together a sinister promise. Ava blinked, forcing logic into her racing mind. We need to find a way out, she told Ethan, who was frozen next to her, his eyes wide with terror. Mom, I don't like this. His small voice barely made it past the churning sorrow that seemed to drown out every other sound. Neither do I, she admitted under her breath, but determination surged as she pushed forward, dragging Ethan behind her. The cold slip of horror was rising again, threatening to consume them both. They crossed the threshold into the room, the floor creaking ominously beneath them. The walls seemed to pulse, as if the very structure were alive, breathing. Every heartbeat echoed through the peeling wallpaper, rhythmic and taunting. "Look!" Ethan's finger trembled as he pointed towards something half-hidden in the shadowy corner, a mirror, its surface clouded with grime. Ava's heart raced. What could it reflect? Steeling herself, she approached the mirror, feeling Ethan cling to her, as if she were a lifeline. The glass rippled, transforming into a swirling abyss. She leaned closer, her breath fogging the surface, and for a moment, glimpses of their former life flickered back at them: living room laughter, sunny afternoons, the little joys that seemed now so far away. But then, darkness erupted. The mirror depicted a nightmarish reflection of Ethan, but not the young boy beside her. Instead, it showed a gaunt, hollow-eyed version, reaching out with gaunt fingers. Ava recoiled, pulling Ethan back, but he was entranced, stepping closer still. "Ethan, no." Her voice cut through the mesmerized state, an instinctive shout for her son to back away. "Mom, it's me," he murmured, eyes wide with an otherworldly allure. "I can be like them. It looks fun." That sent dread coursing through Ava's veins like ice water. "Listen to me. It's not fun. They want to take you away. We have to." But before she could finish, a gust of wind howled through the room, slamming the door shut with a deafening bang. The walls trembled, shadows swirling closer, and the whisper grew deafening. Heart pounding, Ava turned back to the mirror, desperation clawing at her throat. The reflection shifted again, now showing unimaginable anguish, broken families, and a parade of empty-eyed souls trapped behind the glass, forever lost. "Mom, help!" Ethan screamed, suddenly yanked backward, away from the abyss, but the shadows began to crest toward them, deepening and thickening like a tide. "Hold on to me," Ava cried, lunging toward him, but the mirror's darkness was now crawling across the floor, slick and alive. The room began to shake as if it were battling against itself, the light from the mirror growing brighter, threatening to drag them both into its depths. "Mom, please." The terror in her son's voice pierced through the chaotic noise around them. Ava's heart raced as she locked eyes with Ethan, knowing they had one chance. "We're getting out of here. Together." As they prepared to run, a piercing laugh shot through the air, a voice not quite familiar and yet chillingly recognizable. It echoed through the room, wrapping around them like a blanket of dread. "Stay or play, the choice is yours." Before Ava could respond, shadows lunged at them, and seconds turned into terrifying eternity. Would they find a way to escape? Or would they become the next echoes of the mirror, trapped forever in a world of horror? Ava's instinct kicked in as the shadows lunged, darkness stretching and curling like hungry snakes. She yanked Ethan toward the only shred of light, the sliver left by the open doorway. But the room seemed to shift beneath them, the ground heaving as if it were alive with malevolence. "Run!" Ava shouted, her voice a desperate plea washed in fear. The laughter echoed again, reverberating off walls that were closing in like a vice, almost as if the space were conspiring against them. Ethan stumbled but did not fall, the pull of the unknown still tugging at him like an invisible thread. The door behind them slammed shut, leaving only a chilling silence that thickened the air. It's not just whispers, Ava realized, panic prickling at the back of her mind. It's their voices. They want him. The thought coiled tight in her chest, a living thing desperate to break free. Ava turned, fierce resolve filling her. She couldn't let it take Ethan. "Listen to me. You have to fight it." She squeezed Ethan's hand, watching the spark of hesitation in his wide eyes. The shadows slinked closer, the whispers hissing, wrapping around his thoughts. "It's okay to be scared, but you're stronger than them. Remember our home? Remember our laughter?" She injected as much urgency as she could muster, hoping to penetrate the haze that clung gloriously to him. Ethan swallowed hard, the allure of the dark pulling at him. "Mom, I'm scared," he whimpered, and it hurt Ava to see her boy so vulnerable. Suddenly, the mirror creaked, and the surface trembled as if it were trying to break free from its own confines. Images flickered again, then shattered like glass. Old photographs filled with smiles twisted and melted into nightmarish scenes. Ava screamed internally as she felt the tug of despair clawing its way into her heart. Ethan, we have to get out. She could see the mirror's pull growing stronger as more moans began to seep from the walls lives once lived, now extinguished. Echoes of laughter turned into cries of anguish. Then came a voice, sweet and deep, weaving through her thoughts like molasses, wrapping around her mind with gentle power. Ava, join us now. The rebuttal tore from her throat. Then, a moment of clarity hit her. What if we turn our back on the mirror? Desperation thrummed in her veins. Perhaps the shadows could be faced, but she couldn't lose her son to the abyss. Ethan, close your eyes. Trust me, she commanded, yanking him toward the mirror as the shadows closed in, hungry for their prey. He hesitated, but the urgency in her voice resonated within him. He squeezed his eyes shut. Ava ran and pulled Ethan tight against her. She felt the pulse of the shadows, hot and malevolent, swathing around them like a shroud. The air turned frostbitten as she fought to stay oriented. The escape route had to be close. With every ounce of strength, she pushed against the immediate dread. Her breath came in frantic gasps. She felt Ethan shift beside her, still terrified but clinging to her like a lifeline. Then, she heard the laughter again, closer now, and sharp, like shattering glass. You think you can escape? You're already part of us. In an instant, a sharp pain snaked around Ava's heart, anchoring her in place as the shadows enveloped them. It was like being submerged in ice, and at that moment, she knew they were not just fighting for their lives but for their spirits, trapped in a dance of despair. With one final deep breath, she focused on one memory: Ethan's bright face on a warm summer day, his laughter spilling into the cool air. She whispered fiercely, "We're not alone. We're together." The ground shook violently, the walls rattled. The shadows recoiled just enough, creating a flicker of hope as she felt a sudden surge of determination flood through her. But just as the first slivers of freedom appeared, darkness enveloped them once more, bowing under the weight of dread. Join us or perish. As the whisper enveloped her senses completely, Ava's heart clenched, swirling in turmoil. Would they break free, or was it too late? One choice lay ahead, but it felt suspended in time, the next moment crucial. Could they defy the shadows? Would she be able to save Ethan, or would the darkness claim them both? The very air seemed to crackle with tension, waiting for their answer. The ground shuddered, and Ava gritted her teeth against the pain that surged through her chest. "Ethan, keep your eyes shut," she shouted, her voice slicing through the thickening air. She felt the shadows swirling, taunting and beckoning, eager to ensnare them. In the suffocating blackness, a new sound erupted, a screeching wail that pierced right through the cacophony of whispers. It wasn't just laughing anymore. It sounded like tortured souls, pleading for release among the encroaching void. Ava ignored the dread pooling in her stomach and held Ethan's hand tighter, as if her grip alone could stave off the darkness. "Feel me." The insistence echoed in her mind, a smothering pulse that synced with the chaos. The shadows darted in closer, visible only by the pinpricks of desperation reflected in Ava's wide eyes. She had to keep him present, grounded away from the pull of whatever darkness lay beyond their fragile sanctuary. "Let it go?" A voice, sharp and brittle, surged through her. "You can't hold on to what's just a memory." The words were laced with mockery, and she glanced at the mirror. It pulsed like a living thing, its surface shifting and liquefying, images of lost times battling against the onslaught of despair surrounding them. "Stop," she barked, fury igniting her heart. "You don't own us." Her voice resonated with strength she barely felt, but she knew it was necessary. She must not show fear. She was Ethan's shield. The shadows recoiled for a moment, hesitant. But something inside Ava twisted as she felt that pull of despair again, warm, dark, and inviting. What if letting go of the past wasn't so terrifying? What if freedom lay in surrender? No. She spat the word like venom, shaking her head violently to dispel the thought. She wouldn't be claimed. Not today. "Ethan," she murmured, shifting closer, "we have to breathe together. Remember Mom?" His voice fractured as a wave of icy air surged around them, heavy with dread. The floor sank, swallowing them deeper into that cavern of eternal darkness. Ava felt her heart racing, fear blending with the suffocating grip of the shadows. The laughter, once a distant echo, now swirled violently around them. Join Us snaked into her thoughts again, lower, more sinister. It clawed at her resolve, urging her to relinquish Ethan. No, she shouted once more, clenching her eyes shut to the emerging visions of the past, memories interwoven with grief. They would end up here, lost forever if she let go. She wouldn't surrender. Mom, I can't hold on. Ethan wailed. His voice was barely audible over the sinister laughter and the scraping sounds that echoed just beyond the haze. With frantic determination, she grabbed his other hand. You have to fight. You're stronger than this. Think of your friends. Think of our days at the park. You can't let them take that from you. As her words pushed through the trauma surrounding them, the shadows thrashed angrily, swirling, retreating momentarily. The space vibrated with a dark energy, each whisper a taunt, growing louder until it felt like nails on a chalkboard. Ava felt the ground shifting beneath them again. The mirror began to morph one last time, darkness shimmering into grotesque forms of everything they had lost. Faces flashed, friends, family, all twisted in anguish, reaching out hopelessly from the void. Ethan cried out, the weight of grief heavily collapsing over them. And just when Ava thought the breaking point was near, she wrapped her arms tightly around him. We are not your prisoners. We are alive. The laughter crescendoed, ripping into terrifying howls. Every fiber in Ava's being screamed against the darkness, her heart pounding like a war drum. Moments stretched unbearably, seconds feeling like an eternity as she held onto the fragile thread of hope. Then the shadows recoiled, and for an instant, the air brightened, almost blinding them. But the clarity was fleeting, a mere trickle of light among the whirlpool of despair. What if the shadows could feel their defiance? What if this moment was all that mattered? What if their fight wasn't just against the darkness, but also against their own fears? As the shadows regrouped with furious intensity, Ava and Ethan braced for what was to come. With the final strike, laughter echoed deafeningly, and she whispered one last time, "Don't let go." Would they find a way to escape this relentless void together? Or would they succumb to the darkness that hungered for their very souls? The momentum gathered weight as the shadows lurched forward, threatening to drown out everything they had ever known. The shadows lunged, a mass of writhing darkness that swallowed the fleeting light. Ava squeezed Ethan's hands until her knuckles turned white. The cold claws of despair brushed against her skin, inching closer, probing for weaknesses. She could hear the sound of her own heart, a frantic drum echoing in the silence, drowned by the cacophony of laughter and screams. "Ethan, stay with me," she yelled, but the words felt brittle, fraying at the edges. What if they couldn't fight much longer? What if the darkness was right? A chilling breeze swept through, wrapping around them like a sinister embrace. Thoughts flickered through Ava's mind, regrets, fears, loves lost. Each one doused in a thick fog that blurred her vision. Was it really her memories of happiness that the shadows craved? The mirror, now a storm of distorted faces, pulsed more violently, and Ava felt the urge to relent, to dive into oblivion where pain couldn't follow. No, she spat the word, anger fueling her. You don't decide who we are? The shadows hesitated, the voices momentarily quieting as if considering her defiance. For just a split second, the chaos around them waned, replaced with a deafening silence. Ava took a shuddering breath, pulling Ethan closer. Did her courage spark a moment of clarity, or was it just a cruel trick by the dark forces surrounding them? Suddenly, the mirror surged forward, and a low growl rumbled through the void. Ava couldn't help but gasp as thick tendrils of darkness emerged, slithering and curling like serpents yearning for prey. As the desolation captured her gaze, she jerked her head away, knowing she couldn't let it hypnotize her. Remember the park, Ethan? She whispered urgently. Remember the swings, the laughter. Focus on that. But the shadows, relentless and cunning, began to warp those precious memories. Ethan's face pinched with pain as he watched their sanctuary unravel, the image of the sun-drenched park turning gray and chilling. Mom, I can't see it anymore. Don't let them take that from you. Her voice rose and fell with the frantic rhythm of her heart. Ava felt desperation clawing at her throat, threatening to choke her. She looked into Ethan's eyes, searching for any flicker of the boy he had been. With a quick jerk, Ava pulled Ethan behind her, shielding him, drawing strength from the moment. We can't let them win. Keep fighting. The shadows surged forward again, rage boiling through the whispers and laughter. It was as if they fed off their fear, growing stronger with every tremor. The darkness closed in, and Ava's mind flashed back to the moments that defined them, each one a beacon against the rising tide of despair. Images struck her with fierce clarity. The warmth of Ethan's laughter, the sparkle in his eyes. Each memory became a weapon in her arsenal against the shadows, igniting a fire within her. I refuse to lose you, she shouted, standing resolutely between the dark and her son. The shadows twisted and crashed against her resolve as if trying to shove her down, to shatter that light. Ava felt a swell of power rippling through her. This was their fight, their memories, and she wouldn't back down. Let us do this together, Ethan, she cried, and the shadows momentarily faltered at the intensity of their connection. With newfound determination, Ava pushed forward, willing to face whatever horror awaited. But would the courage they summoned be enough to fend off the shadows? Or was this merely another illusion, a glimpse of light before the inevitable plunge into darkness? The ground trembled again, and Ava braced herself as the mirror's surface rippled more violently, ominously reflecting their deepest fears. In that split second, choking on the laughter that echoed around them, she couldn't shake the chilling realization. What if they lost themselves in this battle against time and darkness? With a heart-stopping finality, the darkness began to envelop them, a crushing weight as the shadows pressed closer and closer. Would they finally succumb to the clutches of despair? Or was there still a sliver of hope left to grasp? Ava's heart hammered in her chest, a frantic metronome against the encroaching shadows. The laughter of lost souls echoed, swirling around them like a twisted symphony. She turned to Ethan, his eyes wide with terror, and for a moment, she wondered if he could see the same thing she did. The vibrant playground, the sun, the joy all fading into an abyss of malevolence. Think of the sunlight, she urged, her voice trembling under the weight of despair. Think of the summer days. We have to hold on. As if mocking her plea, the shadows flickered, morphing swiftly. They began to unfurl, mimicking twisted versions of her words, distilling her memories into distorted echoes. Hold on, they hissed, their voices layered with chilling mockery. Ethan's small frame quaked against hers. Mom, he gasped, his breath hitching. What if we can't fight it? No. Her denial screamed into the abyss, but doubt seeped in, clawing at her resolve. What if the shadows were right? What if she had led them into a trap, a cruel game where despair always won? Ava clenched her fists, letting anger wash over her like a wave. They couldn't let this be the end. Desperation surged within her, igniting a flame. Ethan, focus on your love for me. Your laughter, we're still here. But just as she spoke, a wave of deepest darkness surged forward, enveloping them in cold. The shadows seemed to breathe, taking in the warmth of their memories, then exhaling fears that stung as they wrapped around them. Ava winced, the chill of the dark clawing through her skin, pulling her into its embrace. Mom, I can't breathe. Ethan's voice wobbled, nearly breaking as the tendrils tightened, squeezing the joy from their minds. Panic surged, threatening to pull her under. Then, like a punch to the gut, the reflection in the mirror shifted. Faces emerged, twisted, anguished visages that taunted her. Once familiar, now corrupted by sorrow and fear. Friends, neighbors, loved ones. Even her own face twisted into a grotesque mask of terror. Ava gasped, staggered by the intimate horror. Stop! Get away from us! She shouted, and in that moment of defiance, something within her stirred, an ember of hope ignited by the sight of Ethan, his small frame still fighting the darkness next to her. The shadows hesitated, recoiling slightly, as if struck. Ava dared to push forward, and Ethan followed. We're not afraid of you, she shouted, gripping her son's hand tighter. But just as certainty began to swell within her, a deafening sound erupted, a cacophony of shrieks and roars that permeated the air, drowning their resolve in chaos. The laughter twisted into a haunting melody, each note sharp and malicious, clawing at the remnants of their courage. Ava's mind raced. What if every horror they encountered was a reflection, a manifestation of all they feared? What if this darkness was a prison built from despair, and they were slowly becoming part of its walls? Stay strong, Ethan, Ava screamed, lunging forward, eyes locked onto the mirror. We can't let it win. No matter what happens, we're together. The darkness recoiled, and the mirror pulsed violently. The screams crescendoed as something surged from its depths, a silhouette, massive and shadowy, eyes glinting with malice. Ava felt a bone-deep chill as the creature stepped into view. Together? A voice boomed, deep and resonant, echoing through the void. You think together is enough? You have no idea what you're up against, and with that, the shadows lunged again, and Ava braced for impact. Would they shatter? Or was there still a glimmer of hope hidden in the darkness? As the next wave crashed over them, drowning out reason, she took a deep breath, preparing to face whatever monstrosity awaited in their final moments. But then, something unexpected happened. A light flickered, unrecognizable but potent, cutting a path through the shadows. What was that? Hope? Fear? Or something else entirely? Ava's heart pounded as the luminous figure seemed to beckon them. Could they follow it out, or was it yet another deception? Ava's grip tightened around Ethan's hand as the flickering light danced amid the chaos. It pulsed like a heartbeat, steady yet ominous, urging them forward, drawing them closer to the glowing figure. She hesitated, caught between terror and a longing for warmth. Mom, do we trust it? Ethan's voice quivered, his eyes darting around the encroaching darkness, nearly drowning in its abyss. I don't know, she replied, her voice shaking. But we can't stay here. We have to try. They moved, inching toward the light. Each step felt heavy, as if the shadows themselves conspired to drag them back. Ava's heart raced, pounding against the sudden silence that draped over them like a shroud. The cacophony of screams faded into a whisper, replaced by a disorienting calm that felt wrong, suffocating that as they drew nearer. The light revealed more. It was a figure, though not entirely human. Wisps of shimmering energy cascaded around it, shifting like smoke. The features were indistinct, but it turned its head slightly, and Ava caught the glint of eyes that seemed to swirl with unbridled knowledge. Trust the light, it whispered, the sound soft yet commanding, as soothing as honey yet sharp as a blade. It is your lifeline in this desolation. Lifeline, she repeated, the word translating into both promise and uncertainty. Mom, Ethan's voice trembled, pulling her back from the haze of hope. What if it's a trap? Before she could answer, the shadows writhed violently, snapping like predatory beasts denied their prey. They lunged toward the figure with hunger, shrieks rising in fury. Ava felt the wind of their anger sweep past her face. No, stay away, she screamed, stepping forward instinctively. The light flickered, dimming as if threatened, and Ethan instinctively squeezed her hand tighter. Don't let it go, he shouted. Ava's heart quaked. What if this was at the moment of choice? To chase after the flickering hope, or to retreat back into darkness? The shadows advanced, billowing like a storm, eager to consume. The malevolent laughter crescendoed as it twisted into a frenzy. The wails of the lost echoed in her ears, drowning out her resolve in a flood of despair. Please, she pleaded, wanting to believe, wanting to grip the light and pull them both free. We have to. An unearthly force rippled through the air, a tangible push that sent them stumbling backward. Ava stumbled, but quickly steadied herself. A single thought bloomed painfully in her mind, a realization. The creature wanted them to fight against the despair, to unleash their own fears. Ethan, she shouted, adrenaline fueling her voice. Think of something good. Think of us. Your laughter, your friends, focus on that. The shadows huddled closer, eager to extinguish their flickering hope. Ethan's eyes clenched shut. The sound of his breath came in ragged gasps. But then, slowly, a smile broke through the fear. The faintest hint of laughter left his lips, and Ava felt warmth begin to blossom. There it is, she encouraged, and the light responded, brightening, expanding. But the shadows lashed out in retaliation, launching tendrils of darkness that sought to wrap around their minds, to pull them back into despair. Stay with me, Ava shouted as she felt the cold creeping into her skin, a vice around her heart. We're stronger than this. You're foolish to resist. The voice boomed, rumbling like thunder through the gloom. You cannot escape what you truly fear. With a roar, the darkness surged, and the luminous figure began to flicker. Ava and Ethan were caught in a monstrous battle between the urge to surrender and the strength to fight. Suddenly, a flicker in the shadows caught her eye, a pair of eyes reflecting a terrifying recognition, something unnerving yet familiar. Ava's breath caught in her throat. Had she seen those eyes before? Or was this yet another trick of the darkness? The light wavered, the shadows pressed in, and Ava felt herself teetering toward collapse. Would they choke on this despair, or could they find their way through the night? The figure's voice sliced through the fading light. The truth will unravel everything you hold dear. Are you ready to face what lies beneath it all? Ava's heart raced as the shadows slithered closer, their whispers now a menacing symphony of taunts and laughter. The murky depths tried to drag her back, but she forced herself to look at the shimmering figure that remained just out of reach. Now wasn't the time to let fear inch into her heart. "Ethan, trust me," she declared, her voice echoing in the thick silence. The glimmering presence flickered as the darkness encircled them, stifling any light that dared enter. It would be easy to let the weight of despair crush them, to surrender to hopelessness. But she could see the spark of resolve flickering in Ethan's eyes. "Lift your head, Ethan. Focus on what we fought for." She squeezed his hand tighter. "Remember your friends? Remember our laughter?" "Yeah," he shouted, even as grim tendrils tried to weave around him. "I remember the park, Mom. The swings." The shadows recoiled slightly as if they could sense what the memories meant to them. Warmth, laughter, a time before despair had smothered their lives. Ava felt a rush of power surge through her, fueled by a mother's fierce determination. "Together," she cried, steering Ethan forward as the light flickered brighter, pushed by the potency of their shared memories. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, desperate to snuff out their flame, but Ava surged forward, her footsteps breaking through the oppressive silence. Their laughter melded with the whispers, a melody of hope rising above the gale of despair. "Mom," Ethan exclaimed, surprise brightening his face as the figure began to shimmer more distinctly, reaching out with hands made of light. "It's helping us." Ava's breath caught. The figure wasn't threatening, it was inviting, urging them towards safety, toward the absolutely unknown. "We have to risk it, Ethan." She didn't just mean the light. She meant everything they had left to lose. As they approached, the light pulsed, revealing a hidden path illuminated just beyond the veil of shadows. A voice called out, soothing and distinct. "This way. Pour your love and courage into the light. It will guide you. Let us go." With determination, they bolted towards the encroaching brilliance, the shadows shrieking in feral rage around them. Ava felt Ethan's grip tighten, an encouragement spiraling up her spine. "I'm right here," she called, reassuring herself as much as him. The tendrils lashed against them, biting like icy daggers, but she pressed on, breathing through the pain, embracing the warmth of their shared love. Then they were through, stepping into a dazzling expanse lit by a vibrant cascade of colors, a world thoroughly beyond the suffocating shadows. The cacophony faded into a gentle hum, replaced by the aroma of fresh grass and the laughter of children at play. "We're free," Ethan shouted, eyes gleaming with wonder. "Yes, my love. We made it." Ava enveloped him in a fierce hug, relief washing over her. But in the back of her mind, she kept dreaming of the shadows, of the horror they escaped. Suddenly, a weight tugged at her heart. "But what about the others?" she whispered, choked by emotion. "We can't just leave them." The light flickered again, reshaping into small silhouettes that wandered around the flowing motes of happiness. Ava's heart constricted. "They're still trapped," she realized, her voice trembling. "They need help." Ethan looked up at her, a flicker of understanding passing between them. "Then we help them," he replied earnestly, voice firm. "If we can escape, we can bring them back, right?" "You're right," she agreed, fresh determination mingling with fierce love. "We can't let fear chain others in that nightmare while we stand here safe. Let us do it together." Hand in hand, they turned back to the edges of the darkness, the boundary between hope and despair. With every step they took towards the darkened threshold, the shadows hissed, crawling and whispering secrets. "Join us," they hissed, but Ava shut it out, not wanting to be swayed by deadened voices hungry for despair. "We are not afraid," Ava proclaimed into the cold void, her heart filled with fierce love for Ethan and the hope they had just tasted. The shadows hissed and screamed as they pushed forward. "No, you cannot." But Ava's resolve cut through their protests like light through a fog. Surging forth, memories began to materialize, faces of those lost, echoes of laughter, desperate pleas rising anew. Together, Ethan shouted, and the love they shared ignited a blinding brilliance that glowed from within them. And as they burst through the shadows, eyes wide with fear, yet aflame with hope, a swirling vortex of light surrounded them, leading the way back toward the creaking walls of the haunted motel. It was time to help those still trapped, to share the light they had found in each other. Together, Ava said one last time, charging headlong into the darkness and fear, brightening the world around them, ready to free those caught in the depths of despair. And as the light consumed them, it felt as if every soul battled, united at last, to break free from the nightmares that chased them. This was just the beginning, an unwavering journey into the unknown, but it was one they faced side by side with love, laughter, and courage lighting their way. Now, before you bounce off into the night's embrace, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive escape tales coming your way. Smash that like button now to help spread the word. I can't stress how much you're supporting our journey. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories on this wild ride. We want to hear your takes. If you know someone who needs this story as much as you do, don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends. Let us keep the magic alive together. Your support means everything.